Good morning, everybody. MikesMMAPicks here with your Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show brought to you by BetDSI as well as MMA Oddsbreaker. We're here for UFC Vegas 31. Islam Makhachev taking on Thiago Moises. We only have 11 fights here on this specific card. Many of these fights I'm expecting to end inside the distance. Let's get things kicked off with the first fight of the night, where we have a heavyweight matchup between Rodrigo Nascimento taking on Alain Baudot. Baudot, a French fighter, 8-2 record, plus 265 underdog, coming in with a relatively low DraftKings price of 7,200. Nascimento is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter by trade, fighting out of American Top Team, is a fantastic submission artist. And to make a long story short, I see this fight hitting the mat at some point. Either Nascimento is going to end up unconscious, as he was in the Daukaus fight, or Baudot is going to get taken down and submitted rather quickly. I see this fight ending early, and the pick is going to be Nascimento by submission. Next up, second fight of the night, where we head to the men's lightweight division, where we have Francisco Figueiredo, the brother of Davison Figueiredo, with a 12-3-1 record. Similar fighting style, though does not possess the same level of athleticism and power. 12-3-1 record, minus 300 DraftKings price. I do think that Figueiredo name is carrying a lot of weight here, 8,900, though he is taking on a Malcolm Gordon who is one of the most fragile fighters on the roster. 12-5 record, plus 235 underdog, 7,300. Malcolm Gordon, yes, he has a jiu-jitsu game and will throw caution to the wind. Very aggressive fighter, though puts himself in some very bad spots. And as we saw in the Mujerji fight, that it only takes one shot to send this guy crashing to the canvas, and I expect that to happen at some point during this fight. I'll be picking Figueiredo. Granted, he is not a volume striker, isn't going to be putting on a tremendous pace, will sit and lull his opponents into a false sense of security. I think we're going to see Figueiredo land a strike, possibly a questionable strike, that renders Malcolm Gordon unconscious, and referee stops in for the stoppage. Give me Francisco Figueiredo for the victory. Next up, third fight of the night, where we have Anderson dos Santos, grizzled veteran, 36 years old, taking on Miles Johns, Fortis MMA's Miles Johns, 11-1, minus 175 at the betting window for Miles Johns, with a DraftKings price of 8,400. Miles Johns is going to look to use his jab, stay at range, and basically Anderson dos Santos is going to be very over-aggressive, as he's done in previous fights. I believe there are no certainties in this game, but Anderson dos Santos is the much more aggressive fighter here. Miles Johns got to be ready for this. Anderson dos Santos does have a opportunistic guillotine that he looks to latch on. Anderson dos Santos does not go away in fights. Miles Johns is going to... The fight's going to be brought out of Miles Johns in this bout. The Batista fight, there have been others where Miles Johns has shown some chinks in the armor, and dos Santos could exploit that. Initially, my pick was with some conviction, Miles Johns, but as I dug deeper into the tape, I've seen Anderson dos Santos, a wily vet, looking to keep this fight much closer than it should be. Miles Johns, better athlete, better wrestler, looked sucked out at weigh-ins. I'll be picking Miles Johns, but not with much conviction. I see Anderson dos Santos being live here. Miles Johns, at this stage in his career, has a little bit more in the tank. So give me Miles Johns. Next up, where we have an interesting matchup between Khalid Taha and Sergey Morozov. Khalid Taha, 13-3 record, minus 145 favorite, coming off of a hellacious loss to Raoni Barcelos, where one thing you could say about him is he did not go away. There were points in that fight where it looked like the seminal blow had been landed and Taha just hung in there and really showed what he's made of coming off of a USADA suspension. Sergey Morozov, his last bout was rather deceptive because he took an extremely high-level opponent in Umar Nurmagomedov. Sergey Morozov, very well-rounded, fights out of M1 Global, is the more well-rounded, more well-put-together fighter. Taha is going to be looking to land hooks in exchanges and land a strike that could potentially put Morozov on his back. And this fight is a tricky one because the longer it goes, I think we'll see Morozov be the more technical of the two and run away with this fight. Though, in a way, Taha reminds me of a mini Jeremy Stevens, and those guys always have the puncher's chance here despite not possessing the same level skill set. I'll be picking Morozov to win, and I think he gets the job done here via decision. So give me Sergey Morozov as the underdog. Next up, where we have Amanda Lemos, 9-1-1 record, taking on Montserrat Ruiz. Ruiz, impressive win over Cheyenne Buys, where she was landing that head and arm throw and would not let Buys out of that position. And Amanda Lemos is going to be acutely aware of this, as Buys was. But the thing that separates the two is Lemos, I believe, has not only a much higher fight IQ, but also is a devastating striker who is going to keep Ruiz at range. Lemos also has a ground game. It may not be to the level of Ruiz if this fight does hit the mat, but I trust that Lemos is going to have enough to put away the fighter who has never been finished. I think we're going to see Lemos get this done inside the distance and continue to climb the ladder. Last time we saw Lemos fight, I tweeted, who does she remind you of? And she does remind me of a Devison Figueiredo. They fight out of the same camp. And Lemos, I love the firepower from her. I think she is going to be an excellent DraftKings play. And 9,300, though, I see her paying off that price tag when it comes down to it. So give me Amanda Lemos for the victory. Next up, where we have a last-minute replacement in Preston Parsons coming in, taking on Daniel Rodriguez, who was set to take on Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Daniel Rodriguez, 14-2 record, is a southpaw sniper with a ground game. Preston Parsons is going to look to close distance and do so rather quickly, put Rodriguez on his back. He likes to fight in a range that Rodriguez could light Parsons up if this fight stays standing. Parsons must know that. He's got to come in looking to engage and try to drag this fight to the mat. That is his lone path to victory in my eyes. He's got to make this a dirty fight. Plus 255 underdog. DraftKings price of 7,400 for Parsons. Rodriguez, bottom line, I see him peppering Parsons up if this bout takes place at range for any length of time. I see Parsons, the way he doesn't move his head as he closes distance, Rodriguez should land some hellacious strikes. And you watch Rodriguez, his fight against Tim Means, he also showed that he does have that 10th planet jiu-jitsu to fall back on. So give me Daniel Rodriguez in this spot, though it's all dependent upon if Parsons is able to get this fight to the mat, how long this fight gets extended. I think it's a matter of time, though, until Daniel Rodriguez puts Parsons lights out. Granted, Parsons does look like he possibly has a chin on him. That loss to Mike Perry a number of years ago seemed to be performing well in that fight, and it wasn't his chin that necessarily cost him. He ended up eating a big knee up the middle that sent him to the canvas. So give me Daniel Rodriguez in that bout. Now, interesting spot here where we have Billy Quarantillo with a 15-3 record, DraftKings price of 7,700, plus 145 underdog. Everybody loves playing Billy Q at dog odds, taking on a Gabriel Benitez, who is the more proficient striker here, does have leg kicks, but I do see him also having the better hands in this fight. I wonder if it's going to come down to the cardio, because Billy Q, as we saw last time out against Gavin Tucker, was systematically picked apart at range, and that's something that has cost him in the past. He may not be the most technical fighter, but what he lacks in technical proficiency, he makes up in spades with his stick-to-itiveness and his toughness, and then also his jiu-jitsu and the volume in the second and third rounds. So it depends upon Gabriel Benitez, his ability to go to the well with the leg kicks and also make some investments in the body, in the head strikes. That is what could potentially cost Billy Quarantillo in this specific matchup. Now, if this fight hits the third round and Benitez is running on fumes, we'll look out, because Quarantillo could potentially make a comeback here. But I see Gabriel Benitez coming out very, very sharp early and putting Billy Q behind the 8-ball. So it may present a great live betting opportunity there. Keep an eye out for that one. The pick is going to be Gabriel Benitez, though. Let's see who we got in here. All right. Good morning, money. Over 2.5. That may be a good spot. Keep an eye out for that. The thing is, though, you have to look out for Taha and his power. He has some big power on the feet and could potentially send Morosov to the canvas. Good morning, Super Babones. Great to see you. Great morning here on a Saturday, bright and early, where let's get into the next matchup, where we head to middleweight, and we have Rodolfo Vieira coming off of a fight where he was, well, how can you say this? He was completely dominant over Fluffy Hernandez, and then ran out of gas. That's really what it came down to. Had nothing left, and Fluffy Hernandez survived, did not succumb to the submission attempts, and submitted the carcass of Rodolfo Vieira. Rodolfo Vieira, 7-1 record, minus 215 at the betting window. Did make weight, came in at 185, so he didn't shed that. He did shed that extra pound to make it down to 185. Sometimes you'll see him come in at 186. 8,700. Taking on Dustin Stoltzfus, who is, you look at the submissions that he's locked up throughout his mixed martial arts career, and the guy has a mixed bag of submissions. I don't think what we saw last time out against Daukaus was what he brings to the table. I think Stoltzfus has a lot more to offer, and it's a matter of if Vieira gasses again here. I knew he is going to gas if this fight extends. I don't think he's going to be able to shore up that cardio in one camp. What amazes me, though, is Vieira is a jiu-jitsu fighter who's been competing his entire life and still is incapable of fighting for 15 minutes. Though, look at the energy expenditure during his fights. The guy pours everything into going for the submission. Stoltzfus is a black belt fighting out of Germany. Vieira should be able to take this fight to the mat. Stoltzfus, his takedown defense isn't great. And Vieira, I've been impressed with his wrestling. I see him getting on top of Stoltzfus, and then it's just a matter of what submission is he going to attempt, and can he finish the job? Because the position should be there. And I will be picking Vieira to win. And this isn't a stretch, but I will be picking him to win via submission. But if he gasses out, if this fight gets out of the first round, Stoltzfus becomes live. And that is a dangerous spot when you have a gassed Vieira and you are on Vieira. That was a gut-wrenching fight last time out against Hernandez, because you could tell far and away Vieira was the better fighter on the ground, just completely ran out of gas. Next up, where we have lightweights, Jeremy Stephens moving back up to lightweight. He hasn't fought there since 2012. Jeremy Stephens, 28-18 record. This is a man who possesses the most UFC losses in the history of the promotion, but he also is a fighter who is dangerous. Moicano was able to figure out that puzzle. There have been many fighters who've been able to figure out the Jeremy Stephens puzzle throughout the years, but Stephens also has the ability to land knockdowns, and he throws his punches with vicious intentions. Matthias Gamrot, 18-1 overall record, minus 220 at the betting window, 8,600 DraftKings price. Gamrot is a fighter who tasted his first defeat against Guram Tuteladze. That was a couple of fights ago in what was seen as a controversial loss. Then came out and disposed of Mr. Holtzman in dramatic fashion. We had Gamrot winning that fight via decision, and he ended up sparking Holtzman. This spot, you have a Jeremy Stephens who now is getting up there in age. The mileage, it hasn't really shown itself in fights. I've been surprised by that, to be honest. Stephens does show some holes in his games. It shows some holes in his game by the way of him really loading up on his shots. And Gamrot is going to have to be a matador in this spot if he wants to put on a spectacular performance here, because Stephens is going to be looking to close distance and take Gamrot out of there. Gamrot is the ATT trained fighter out of a great camp with great cardio, fantastic wrestling, and can throw for volume. He's just got to avoid that bomb by Stephens, and I believe he has this fight won. I'll be picking Gamrot to win. Next up, we have Marion Reneau, 44-year-old veteran, retirement fight, taking on Miesha Tate, who hasn't fought in many years. 18-7 record for Miesha Tate, minus 145 at the betting window. I believe this fight should be a pass. And if you are taking someone, Marion Reneau may be the side here, because she's been not only much more active, but she's also been able to take away some rounds from opponents who were significant favorites. And Tate, we know she may not possess great striking defense, looks to win fights via her tenacity, her grappling. Reneau is a black belt here, and she's going to have her son in her corner, which is interesting. I'm not into buying into narratives here, though I have to question Miesha Tate leaving the sport, taking some years off, working for, I believe she worked for One. And granted, she looks like she's in shape, but looking in shape and then performing inside of the octagon are two completely different things. I question the motivation there. Marion Reneau, much more active. I'll be picking Marion Reneau in this spot. I think that not only is she the more active fighter, but she also has a varied skill set, and she should be the much sharper fighter here heading into this battle. I'll be picking Marion Reneau, and the DraftKings price of 8,000. I think we could be getting a better price than that. I'd like to see her price around 7,800, 7,700, but I'll be picking Marion Reneau here. I think that she is going to come in here and score an upset, but you look at, she has her foot out the door. She is retiring. You know, she's 44 years old. There are some big red flags here, but give me Marion Reneau. I really question Miesha Tate at this stage in her career. I know she's only 34, but so much time away from the game, coming off of multiple losses. It's not like she was a world beater when she left. Granted, she was a former champion. Give me Marion Reneau. Main event of the evening, where we have Islam Makhachev taking on Thiago Moises. Now, Makhachev is, we know, Dagestani fighter, trains with Khabib Nurmagomedov, has a blanketing top game that can smother just about anybody. I was at his fight against Nick Lentz, where he just rendered Nick Lentz completely. He basically neutered Nick Lentz out there, and Nick Lentz had nothing for him at all. Makhachev, 19-1 record. I watched, he's only been put in trouble a few times in his whole career. The Chris Wade fight was one of them. Had to overcome a little adversity there, but for the most part, he's been a dominant force. I know he suffered a knockout loss at one point, but Thiago Moises, only 26 years of age, coming off of that Alexander Hernandez victory, the Michael Johnson fight. He's an interesting cat in that he's growing right before our eyes. ATT trained fighter who has been in there with some tough competition against Benny Dariush, etc. Plus 465 underdog. This line is extremely wide. It's just a matter of, is it going to end inside the distance? That's really what it comes down to. If Moises is able to get off at range, then he could pose Makhachev some problems, but I don't think we're going to see Islam give Moises any space here. Moises is a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but you look at the way Makhachev took care of Davi Ramos, and that is how you handle the high-level Jiu-Jitsu fighter. And I think that's what's going to happen in this spot. I see Makhachev gaining significant top control time. And although Moises has been 5 rounds a number of times on the regional scene, this is a different beast here at the highest level inside of the UFC. Makhachev is going to be the pick, and it's just a matter of if he can do this, if he can get this done inside the distance. And that's a toss-up in my eyes. I think we're going to see Makhachev get this done by decision. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this morning and supporting the program. If you wouldn't mind giving the video a like and subscribing to the MMA Oddsbreaker channel, that'll be helpful. I have a number of plays up over at MMA Oddsbreaker Premium. We're third-party tracked. I've been third-party tracked for many years. Long-term winner who tracks his plays. Transparency is key. Want to wish everyone a tremendous fight morning. Thank you for tuning in. Have a fabulous Saturday. Go get what's yours, my friends. Let's do this, all right? Let's go.